Welcome to Healthy Living. I'm Lori Johnson. Today we're talking about life-threatening food allergies. These types of allergies cause some people, especially young children and their parents, to live in constant fear. At any moment, a child or an adult could accidentally be exposed to the food and suffer a deadly reaction, often precipitated by the sudden inability to breathe. My guests today are the co-authors of the new book called The End of Food Allergy, the first program to prevent and reverse a 21st century epidemic. Researcher and physician Dr. Kari Nadeau and Sloan Barnett, the mother of two children with food allergies. First, Dr. Nadeau, thank you so much for being here. Great to see you.
Thank you. Great to see you. Thank you for inviting me.
You know, when I was growing up, food allergies were pretty rare. And then my children, who are now grown, were in school, and it was much more of an issue. There were all kinds of restrictions about what foods they could bring to class. And now, though, food allergies are even more prevalent. What's going on here? How many people suffer from food allergies? And about what percentage of them have life-threatening food allergies?
That's a great question. I agree. When we were growing up, there wasn't a lot of food allergies, and now it's increasing. And in fact, after about 2000, it increased even more. And it's just not in the US, it's also around the globe. And that question is something that gets asked to me by many patients and families that are suffering from this disease because it's very disabling. And what we have found so far, and this is thanks to a lot of research, a lot of science that's been done to be able to find these numbers, about 8% of children in the US have a doctor's diagnosis of food allergies. So that means most of these allergies are to peanut, many other foods, not just peanut either. It's about cashews and tree nuts and milk and egg and wheat and shrimp and fish. And importantly is that in other countries, that percentage looks the same for children. For example, in China, it's about 8%. In Australia, it's 10%. And what we found recently, too, for adults, so let's separate from the children statistics, is that adults are about 8 to 10% as well. And many of the adults find out they have food allergy when they're adults, that they previously ate this food without a problem in childhood. So we need to understand a lot about what's causing these numbers, but it's an epidemic. And unfortunately, for some foods, it's doubling every 10 years. And we really need to think about how to prevent it and how to treat it.
Well, your research led you to prescribe a novel approach to food allergies, and that involves a strategy called immunotherapy, or IT, which is the controlled gradual reintroduction of a little bit of the allergen to the body. Can you tell us why that's preferred to just simply avoiding the allergen indefinitely?
Yeah, thank you so much. We need to make sure we understand what are the best therapies to use. And that's one of the reasons why we wrote the book, is to deliver on this hope and promise that there are therapies out there that need to be done in a trained facility with physicians and with clinicians that know how to dose these. But what we do over time is give small amounts of the food to build up the immune muscle so that over time, the immune system says, wait a minute, this is natural. This is something I should be eating for nutritious sources. I shouldn't be afraid of this, and I shouldn't be causing havoc in the body and misfiring and causing allergies. So over time, and you have to do it daily, you cannot do this weekly. You have to be under the instruction of a trained person, a trained clinic, and then over time you increase little by little. And by the end of about 9 months to a year, you're at doses that change your threshold so that you don't have to worry about accidental ingestion anymore. And that's really great. For a lot of patients, they say, my biggest goal is to not have to live in fear of biting into a peanut butter cookie or a milk-containing item. And so that's what we meant by the end of food allergy. We're really at that beginning, but thank goodness there's an FDA-approved drug out there now for peanut, and that's the beginning to the end of food allergy. But it's done very carefully. The method has to be well controlled. And while people are taking the same food that they're allergic to, even if it's in small amounts, they can have allergic reactions to that. And so that's why you have to be super careful and make sure that it's safe. But what I've at least found is that if anyone wants to do this and they stay committed to the program, they will get desensitized. They will be able to improve their ability to eat more of that food item without having reactions.
When you talk about this immunotherapy type approach, does this work for other types of allergens besides food allergies? For example, environmental allergens like mold. So many people are allergic to mold and things like dust mites.
Lori, what has been known for hundreds of years now, which is great, that this is very natural. People can become desensitized, can become what we call tolerant to an allergen like bee sting or dog or cat or pollens or dust mites by either getting what we used to call allergy shots or immunotherapy. And over time, it's that same concept. You give the body back and desensitize the body to that allergen, but you have to do it under very carefully circumscribed environments where you have people that are well trained. But yes, this is the way to do it. And yes, you can get desensitized, but you need to really work with a doctor who is specialized to be able to get that done.
Well, that's the third time you've mentioned that you should not try this on your own, that you have to be working with a trained therapist, because I guess the results otherwise can be catastrophic.
Yeah.
That's a very important warning. Okay, we're going to take a quick break and be right back with Dr. Kari Nadeau. The book is called The End of Food Allergy.
Life is better with a good night's sleep. Get your free DVD or booklet of Protect Your Sleep today.
I'm Ephraim Graham, and this is Studio 5. Cruise with me as I discover the good things happening in the world of music, sports, television, and movies.
The fact that Ryan Coogler was going to be directing the film, I knew that something special was going to happen.
We'll chat with artists at the forefront of entertainment and explore the connection between popular culture and faith.
I asked my pastor, I said, well, does that mean I'm supposed to be a preacher? He says, well, no, you already have a pulpit.
Watch Studio 5 Wednesday night at 9:30.
Remember for a moment what it was like to be a child. You believed every story you were told. You saw a world full of endless possibilities. What stories will the world's orphaned and at-risk children believe? We believe the Bible tells the only story truly worth believing. We believe that every child should have the opportunity to dream, the chance to take challenges and turn them into possibilities, the chance to stand on the promises of God, to recognize their place in the greatest story ever told. They have their whole lives ahead of them. Theirs is a world of endless possibilities. They are looking for a story to believe. We will tell them that story. Will you join us?
Welcome back to Healthy Living. We're talking with Dr. Kari Nadeau, and the new book is called The End of Food Allergy. What a great concept for people who live in fear of actually dying from a food allergy, especially parents who have children who could literally die from ingesting some sort of a food that they're allergic to. So this is such an important topic, Dr. Nadeau. Thank you so much for your work.
Thank you, Lori, and thank you for having me here. It's really important when we talk about in the book is the concept that there are things in your hands as parents, as people with allergy or people without food allergy, that we now have so much knowledge, thanks to so much research and science, about how to be proactive and how to be reactive. We talk a lot about the hope and promise of therapy if you do have food allergies already. But most importantly, what about the proactive part? What do we know now as to the cause of food allergies that could perhaps allow us to change behavior so that we can decrease the risk of food allergies for our family as well as ourselves? So what we know now is that diversity of diet is really key. By feeding kids early and often, even at the early age of 4 to 6 months, that if they can take foods at the same time, small doses every day, that's really important to inhibit and to prevent their food allergies. In addition is dry skin. If we can help the skin so that it stays really moist and protected and doesn't have a lot of rashes and dryness and itchiness and eczema, that also helps prevent food allergies. Thirdly is dirt, making sure that we get enough exposure to the outside, that we work with other groups to help understand about the microbiome. But we know that being with good microbiome and good gut health is very important. And then the other aspect is living with a dog. And we actually found that, and many people have found that first year of life, if you're an infant or toddler and you don't have dog allergies, that by living with a dog, it decreases your allergies and asthma. And then lastly, vitamin D. So we know that vitamin D levels, if they stay in good quantity, that can help prevent your food allergies. And I also like to make sure that for your audience, people know that a lot of mothers and fathers, they always ask me about, did I cause this? Was it something in my family? Was it something I ate when I'm pregnant? And there doesn't seem to be any association. That basically the way that people get food allergies, we think a lot of times it's due to your environment, maybe a little bit genetics, but that a lot of the things in our hands now we can do to try to decrease the risk of food allergies. But if you do get food allergies, it's not because of anything that your parents did or your family did. It is what it is. A lot of people find out they have food allergies without ever having it in their family or ever having it before.
Well, I love that you address the parental guilt, because, of course, the first thing we moms, and I'm sure dads too, think is, oh, yes, what did I do wrong? But you did mention briefly pregnancy and childbirth. What about this thing about C-sections? I realize some people really medically have to have C-sections, but some people choose to for other reasons. Can you address that? Is there any truth to that myth that children born vaginally are less susceptible to allergies?
It's a great question, Lori. We talk about this in the book. We talk about myths, and then we actually bust down some myths. But one of the things about C-sections is that you don't get that kind of normal appreciation of being able to go through the birth canal and getting exposed to a lot of things. And that's also the natural way to do it. So for that, you can have a natural birth. That would be wonderful. C-section in the case of urgent issues and that are needed medically. But yes, it is true, Lori, that many people around the world have been able to confirm that C-section births do increase your risk of not just food allergies, but also other allergies and asthma by a small percentage. So if you need a C-section, you need a C-section. And I want to make sure people don't feel guilty about that, because not everyone with C-sections has their children that get allergies, but it is a potential risk factor. Yes.
And one last question, processed foods, does that play into food allergies at all?
Great question. So a lot of parents ask me that. I think processed foods in general lead to not optimum gut health, that processed foods themselves aren't more allergenic per se, but the fact that people take in processed foods, and it's not usually those processed foods don't have high fiber, they don't have a lot of live good bacteria in them, they're not that great. So if you can avoid them, you should. I think it's hard for food allergy families because they're trying to look at labels, making sure that those labels don't have the foods in them that could cause the allergy. And that's very disabling and very hard for families. So if you have to have processed food, I understand, but try to avoid it if you can. But it's not directly causative of the food allergy. More detergents and things that are chemicals that can break down the skin and cause dry skin are more what we think could induce food allergy later on.
Well, my thanks to Dr. Kari Nadeau, researcher and physician and author of the book, The End of Food Allergy, featuring immunotherapy, the first program to prevent and reverse a 21st century epidemic. Dr. Nadeau, thanks for your work and for joining us today.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
When we come back, we're going to talk to Sloan Barnett, the book's co-author, who will tell us her personal success story on behalf of her 2 children. Stay with us.
Daddy?
Yeah, buddy?
How many nickels are in $1?
There are 20 nickels in $1.
How do birds fly? Does milk really make my bones stronger?
Yeah.
Daddy, when we die, will we go to heaven?
Do you have the answer to life's biggest question? Call the 700 Club. We'll help you find answers to the important questions life brings your way.
Watch breaking news, in-depth exclusive stories and programs from health to entertainment you won't find anywhere else. The CBN News Channel, a perspective you can trust. Enjoy credible news reporting from around the world. Discover inspiring programs and stories of hope, all in one place from a Christian perspective. The CBN News Channel, a perspective you can trust. To watch the CBN News Channel, download the app or visit cbnnewschannel.com.
Hello, I'm Dr. David Perlmutter, board-certified neurologist and #1 New York Times bestselling author. Wouldn't it be great to boost your energy, eliminate brain fog, and even reverse brain disease? Well, you can, and I'm going to show you how, along with some of the world's most well-respected brain experts in this DVD, Protect Your Brain.
Get Protect Your Brain, a free DVD only from the Christian Broadcasting Network, featuring experts on the cutting edge of neuroscience and brain health.
No matter how many times you've failed in the past, you really can do this.
In Protect Your Brain, you'll discover simple strategies to keep your brain young and healthy. Improve your memory. Discover the gut-brain connection. In Protect Your Brain. Get your free copy at cbn.com or call 1-800-700-7000.
If you want to improve the quality of your life, get the DVD Protect Your Brain and get it today.
Welcome back to Healthy Living. We're talking about food allergies today and featuring the co-authors of the End of Food Allergy, the first program to prevent and reverse a 21st century epidemic. Joining us now is Sloan Barnett, a New York Times bestselling author and mother of 2 children with food allergies. Welcome, Sloan.
I'm so delighted to be here. Thanks for having me.
First of all, tell us your story about your kids' terrible allergies and what finally helped them.
You know, it was really actually very frightening. I didn't know anything about food allergy. It had never been in my life, and going back many generations in my family, no one knew about it. My little boy, who's now a very giant boy, was 2 at the time, and his heart was actually racing out of his shirt. We got so scared. He had a fever and we didn't know what was wrong with him. We brought him to the emergency room. We were living in New York at the time. And at that point, they diagnosed him with something called respiratory airways disease, otherwise known to us, normal folk, as asthma. Well, we didn't have any asthma in our family. And coupled with the number of days that we spent in the ICU with him, which were really scary, they said, you know, asthma often comes with food allergy. I said, no, you don't understand. He doesn't have food allergy. He's fine. He eats everything. But in fact, when we tested him, we found that he was allergic to peanuts. Then my daughter was born, and they said, you need to test your other child 18 months later. I said, but she's fine. Why do we need to test her? Please, they said. She must be tested. She's a sibling. And in fact, she was allergic to all of the tree nuts. And so there I was as a mom for the first time with these 2 children with a disease that, while globally quite prevalent, as we now know, I didn't know anything about. And I was really scared.
So what did you do for your children?
So for starters, we were with an asthma and food allergy doctor in New York. At the time, you know, this was quite some time ago. The science was not where it is today, and not even where it was 10 years ago. And so there wasn't a lot you could do other than avoid it. We changed everything about the way we lived in our home. We didn't have any nuts anywhere of any kind for any reason. That's a very difficult way to live. When you go to restaurants, you really don't know what's in the food. And they might tell you one thing, but people make mistakes, and that's just normal. So wow, it was an incredible thing when we were seated, my husband and I were seated at a wedding across the way from this terrific couple. And they heard about our food allergy and they said, I don't understand. You don't know Dr. Kari Nadeau at Stanford? And in fact, we didn't. We were living now in San Francisco. So we were quite close to Stanford, but we didn't know anything about it. Nobody had told us. And so we drove down there and we got to meet the amazing Kari Nadeau, who you've now met and really is just such a star. And my kids were pioneers. Kari enrolled my 2 children in clinical trials, one through Stanford, one through Harvard, where they underwent oral immunotherapy, which we describe in the book, OIT. And we went on a long journey to find a solution to this crazy disease that my children suffered from.
And now how are your kids doing?
Well, my kids are great. They're both off to college, and they no longer carry an EpiPen. They no longer worry about going to parties or eating out in restaurants. I would tell you they're still careful just because they have the whole history with food, but I don't have to worry. And that's extraordinary. That's where they were pioneers. That's where the science has come. And that's why we wrote the book.
So really talk to our viewers about really what immunotherapy is, just in a nutshell, no pun intended.
Yeah, I know. I make those puns all the time. So thank you for joining me. It was a long journey. It's not easy. It must be under the care of a doctor. You may not just go at this at home. I can't say that enough. I know Kari must have said it, and we say it in the book many times. This is something to be done under doctor supervision, because these foods can really do a lot of damage, including actually cause death. And so this is a very serious medical condition. We were under the care of a host of doctors and nurses at Stanford Hospital. I would drive my children an hour and a half, but people fly from all over the world for this. But I was lucky enough to be able to drive. We'd miss some school. We'd go every week. And they would be fed starting at tiny, tiny, tiny little amounts of the flour of the nut that they were allergic to. Imagine being fed the very thing that you'd been told by your parents and teachers could kill you. And imagine how scary that was for my children. And over time, with every week, Kari's team would increase the dose of the nuts. And after a certain period of time, the children are actually, after over a year, able to tolerate eating those nuts safely. And that's OIT in layman's knowledge, in layman's language.
Really fascinating. So many kids and their parents could benefit from this therapy. We're going to take a quick break and be right back with Sloan Barnett. The book is called The End of Food Allergy. Stay with us.
Christians around the world are standing with the Israelis. But why? In CBN's free magazine, Friends of Israel, you'll discover why Christians are supporting the Jewish state, how Israel is fulfilling prophecy as a light to the nations, and ways you can pray for the people of Israel. Israel needs the support of friends like you. Call now or go to cbn.com to get your free copy of Friends of Israel.
Heavenly Father, we do thank you for the work of your Spirit, Lord God, with this movement of getting the Bible,
yes,
Lord, into public schools.
Watch The Prayer Link, Tuesday nights at 6:30.
Hey, if you're tired and exhausted all day, you can't think clearly, and you really just need a cup or even a pot of coffee to get through your day, then join me, Dr. Josh Axe, for this new series where I'm going to teach you how to transform your diet and use essential oils and supplements to get a better night's sleep.
Get Protect Your Sleep and live your best life with innovative information from 5 leading sleep experts.
If you're not a great sleeper, you can do things to make yourself a great sleeper. If you're already a pretty good sleeper, you can enhance your sleep and be even better.
Discover a sleep-enhancing bedtime routine, how to put insomnia to rest, learn how to relieve pain that disturbs sleep, and much more in Protect Your Sleep.
Everything you do better with a good night's sleep.
Wake up to your best life. Call 1-800-700-7000 to get your free DVD or booklet of Protect Your Sleep today.
Don't miss out on this brand new series.
Welcome back to Healthy Living. We're talking with Sloan Barnett, co-author of the new book called The End of Food Allergy. And you know, Sloan, so many people with allergies live in fear. This is particularly true of parents who can't monitor what their kids eat all the time. Sometimes even the tiniest speck of an allergen can cause a life-threatening reaction. What do you say to people who live their lives consumed by worry about food allergies?
You know, it's all about being careful, and you must always have your EpiPen with you. You must advocate constantly for your children. As they get older, they learn to advocate for themselves. What do I mean by that? In your home, it's easy. You can avoid all of these things. Out in the world is where it becomes more complicated. So you try to equip your children to ask questions, to really be very diligent in the lunchroom. The parents can advocate in the lunchroom at school, but the children also need to know to ask questions. What's in a certain food? Where is it? Who are they sitting next to? They need to learn not to eat out of anybody else's lunch bag. That can be very, very, very dangerous. And then restaurants are a whole nother situation. They've gotten better, but you still never really know what's going to end up on your plate. And you have to be careful because it's just so dangerous.
You said that really there wasn't asthma in your family and really not very many food allergies. Do you know what caused your children's food allergies, or on a larger scale, what causes food allergies in general?
You know, that's the question, right, that we talk a lot about in the book, and I often defer to Kari to do it, but I think what I'm certain that she said is that we believe that the pollution in the air is creating part of it. They've shown that the wildfires that we suffer from in California are a part of it. Chemicals in your home. Kari refers to the 5 Ds. And so it's chemicals in your home. It's the emollients that you use on dry skin when they're babies. We've also learned, and I'm the exact right age. When I was having babies, I was told not to eat certain foods during my pregnancy, like peanuts, and not to expose the children to them. Today, we know that the opposite is true. In fact, you can expose your children at a very young age. And not only can you, but you should. And, you know, on a lighter note, they say that Kari would tell you having a dog brings in all of the right kind of germs to a family's home. And so, you know, she can't provide the dog, but we certainly can. I will tell you, I have a third child. We don't talk about him in the book because he has no asthma and no allergies. And he was raised in a very much chemical-free home in the state of California with 2 dogs. And, you know, I just say, I think I probably did better the third time around.
Any final thoughts, Sloan?
You know, this book is so important in the world. As you know, 1 in 13 people in the world have this disease, 1 in 10 kids. It's in every school. It's in every lunchroom. This book is a book of hope. The science has come so fast and furious, and one can't say that with every disease. But in this disease, the leading doctor, like Kari Nadeau, can really see the end. That's why we called it the end of food allergy, because there is really promise at the end of this rainbow. OIT is not available to everyone yet, but it is coming. And reading it allows you to address the prevention and gives you the promise of what's the future. And so for that, I'm so proud to be associated with this project and so delighted that you could bring it to the world, and grateful to you, Lori, for spreading the good word.
Sloan Barnett, thanks for telling your story and for helping to put the program into layman's terms so everyone can understand it. Great to see you. Thanks for being here.
Again, thanks so much for having me.
Once again, the book is called The End of Food Allergy, featuring immunotherapy, the first program to prevent and reverse a 21st century epidemic. Well, that's all the time we have for this edition of Healthy Living. I'm Lori Johnson. Have a great day, everyone, and we'll see you again next time. Take care.